Hey, everybody. Welcome to our live cast, our live stream. Today's topic is revelation creation. Awareness includes a built-in aliveness to our own responsibility in the matter of living or aliveness. Self-revelation is felt humanly as creativity. Human beings tend to automatically project experiences of events and happenings as if those experiences occurred outside of ourselves. That's an impossibility. My experiences are always mine, right? Any
Yep.
belief that delegates my experience to other than myself blinds me to my wholeness and robs me of the ongoing power present in being myself. Said another way, relinquishing ownership of our experiences deprives us of our capacity to consciously shape all our living divinely, whole, perfect, joyous, and free. Now, I do want to say one thing about our sponsor for these live streams, and that is the Institute of Metaphysical Science. So just a little about the Institute of Metaphysical Science. Established in 1959 as the Margaret Laird Foundation, researching, exploring, living, and teaching the science of being and the causal nature of consciousness. You can visit the website at www.scientificmetaphysics.org. Welcome, Betty. How are you today?
Really fine.
Excellent, excellent. All right. So as we've been doing in this series of live streams lately, our reference point is Government is Self-Government, the book by Margaret Laird. And so today, as we look at this episode, Revelation and Creation, quoting Mrs. Laird, the truth of being is one conscious infinitude of existence, mind, man, universe. Human history is a record of infinity, of self-expanding consciousness or mind, written in the existential language of ceaseless change. In identifying consciously with and as mind, your divinity gives you new humanhood. And that's right from Government is Self-Government on page 52.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, Betty, is there anything you would like to add to that as a preamble to getting started with the quotes and the conversation, looking at revelation and creation?
Yeah, well, Mrs. Laird mentioned new humanhood, and new humanhood is a self-revealing seen as creative daily living. You see, the divinity is present if there's a Betty, if there's a Kim.
Right.
If you're present, divinity is present.
Yeah.
Wholeness, completeness. So your new humanhood is when you allow that to stand forth.
Right.
Yep.
Yes. Okay, very good. Now, as always, you can enter comments. We welcome any comments, any questions at all. Just type those right into your comment box and we will get those. There will be a little bit of a delay, but we welcome all of that. And if you enjoy this conversation, you can do the thumbs up or the heart for liking it, whether you're on Facebook or YouTube. All right, so let's dive in, shall we? Revelation and creation. So in Government is Self-Government on page 52, Margaret Laird wrote, health or wholeness is the happening seen as the appearing and disappearing of an imagined health. I may imagine a self other than myself, but I cannot possibly have or live a self other than myself.
Yep. You can't. There's just one self.
Right.
Yep.
I've got this pillow back here that keeps showing its little face. I'm going to move it because it keeps distracting me. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. And is there anything else? I mean, why would you want to be anything other than the self that you are?
Well, it isn't that you consciously want to be anything other than, but we're so blinded by the picture we present. You know, I look and I think, oh, that's Betty. I get blinded by the Betty look.
Right.
and forget that that's the piece I have to play the game in human living at this level.
Right.
But the divine being that has Betty show up is really the causative factor in my life.
Okay.
When I recognize that, I would operate at a little different level than when I think Betty is doing the thing.
Right. Right. Okay.
Gives me a little more freedom.
Right. Right. Now, in Science and Health, on page 265, line 161, Mary Baker Eddy said, the senses represent birth as untimely and death as irresistible. But this is true only of a mortal language view, not of man in God's image and likeness. The truth of being is perennial, and the error, belief or concept, is unreal and obsolete.
Yeah.
So unpack that a little bit. Let's break that down.
People have heard you say that, so once in a while I get that comment. And we were reading in a book the other day, and one of the people said, unpack that a little, Betty. So,
that's right.
Yeah, well.
So let's just look at the beginning. The senses represent birth and untimely and death as irresistible. Why would that be?
Well, you never know when the baby's going to arrive in the human sense of things. It has its own schedule. You think it's going to come on such and such a day, and it comes a week late or a week early or 2 days late or 3 hours early or whatever.
Yeah.
But it has its own schedule. So that's not too count onable. You have to kind of go with the flow.
Right.
With death, it has been used as an escape. It's kind of interesting. But a lot of people just welcome it. Oh boy, get out of this mess. Might as well die. I'd rather be somewhere else, The thing that I've really been listening to lately is Mrs. Laird's seminar in Liverpool, 1962. And she says that this thing of death, we call it death because we're finished with something. It's dead and gone. We're finished with the belief system we've been playing with, and we're complete about it. So on we go.
Right.
And we forget that the on we go means that, hey, the same thing that's here right now is there right now tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And you take yourself with you wherever you go. Yeah. So it's not an escape hatch. Right. You actually are going to work out all the things that trouble you along the way, because the truth of the matter is divine being has no trouble. And you're up to discovering yourself as divine being.
Right.
So self-discovering goes right on whatever belief level you're walking through.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Okay. And then we go to the next little part. And that next part says, but this is true only of a mortal language view. So the birth and death thing is only a language view picture of things. Yes?
Yep.
Okay. So talk about that a little bit. I need to plug in.
Well, I could read what I put in this from my book, Mind is the Athlete.
Yep.
What's really causative, perhaps treating the physical world, which I refer to as language.
Yes.
The seen, heard, and felt, as if it were causative, is actually erroneous. And it's a threat to individual effectiveness. So treating the seen, heard, and felt as if it caused the problem or contributed to it or made you happy or sad, anything that gives it credit for something, it does not exist as a thing. So you're giving credit to a point of view that has no substance at all, which means that you're absolutely blind to what's going on and who you are.
Yeah.
And ineffective in your living. to that extent.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I
Very good.
wrote a note there saying the student of scientific metaphysics walks his path, exploring what's possible when the physical evidence, the seen, heard, and felt stuff, is understood to be a mode of consciousness.
Yeah.
That's really all it is. And it is self-revealing. It isn't something that you have something to do with. It shows up, and it doesn't exist external to the mind being you right now.
Right.
Yeah.
So then it goes on to say the truth of being is perennial, meaning ongoing, right? Is that perennial is ongoing? I always think of perennial flowers. They always bloom in the next year. They're
Well,
not just annuals, but they're perennials.
You're back in Mary Baker Eddy's statement. I've
Yeah.
done Betty Albee's statement.
I haven't moved to that yet, though.
I've just finished it all.
Oh, got it right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. I said I was doing that, but you were
Okay.
distracted.
Yeah. Right. Sorry.
It's all right.
Okay. So again, any questions, comments, just put them in the chat and or in the comment box, and we'll move on from there. Okay. So again, mind is the athlete. What's really causative? Perhaps treating the physical world, which I refer to as language, the seen, heard, and felt, as if it were causative, is actually erroneous. So when things come up and we say, that guy's a rat, that's just maybe so, maybe not. Thank you for sharing.
It's entirely maybe not.
Right. Entirely maybe not. I like that. That's good. Okay, so then moving on to the next quote from Government is Self-Government on page 53. Margaret Laird wrote, "The thinking that identifies mind is the energy of spirit, experienced as inspiration, intuition. Today, we know that man demonstrates his now divineness by living God consciously as himself."
Yep. Yeah. I put a little note in there saying, I ask, who or what says difficult? You'll find that in your living, the things that give you a problem are the things that you say are a problem.
Right.
And it's from your lips to God's ears, you know.
Right.
If you
About
say
6
problem,
inches.
yeah. It's as you say. If you
Right.
say it's a problem, that's the way you're going to live it.
Yeah. Right.
If you say it may look like a challenge, okay, you have a little bit of leeway there to work with it. But
Yep.
it can be a problem if you say so, or not if you say so.
Right. Okay. And then in Science and Health on page 256, line 32, and over to on the new page, line 3, Mary Baker Eddy wrote, "Infinite mind is the creator and the creation. Reality is the infinite idea emanating from this mind."
Yep.
So infinite mind is the creator and the creation.
Yep.
Reality is the infinite idea.
Yep.
So the idea is the reality, not the look, not the language.
Well, the idea is what is present, and you are seeing it as the language world you walk through.
Yeah.
We think the language world we walk through actually exists out there, is separate, and I can do something with it, for it, about it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And science comes along and says you have to consider that just may not be true.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to consider that the stuff that I think is so real and so right out there, and I can see it and touch it and all that, I really think that's what's real.
Right.
And I think the idea, which of course is the source of the look, but I think the idea is really lacking in substance.
Uh-huh.
So I have my substance confused.
Right.
And science has just flipped it over for me, saying, that's what substance. The idea is a substance.
Right.
Your point of view which you think has a lot of substance, is just a very limited view
Right.
of the enormous reality that's present.
Right.
Yeah. It's a new, a really new perception that reverses everything that you're used to. So it's not easy to work with this stuff until you kind of get into what we're talking about.
Right.
But the difference that it makes is that you have a measure, if I can call it that, a measure of control in your living.
Yeah.
You can live your joy with more freedom.
Right.
It isn't hinged on something out there that you have no control over.
Right. Okay. And in your book, Mind is the Athlete, on page 26, you write, be clear that fundamental causation, a function of consciousness or mind, is always active. The human point of view is always a view of reality. Understanding this allows you to be permissive of the view.
Yep.
Because that's all it is, right? Yeah.
Right. You don't have to get excited about it. It's a view.
Right.
It's the way I'm seeing something at the moment.
Right. Well, it's
And
the only way you can see it at the moment.
Yeah, but what I'm seeing is not what you're seeing.
Correct.
Each one of us sees reality as we see it. We don't see it as it is.
Right. But we see it the only way we can see it for right then and what's up for our own self-discovering.
Yeah, but the acknowledgement that what I'm seeing is a view of a reality far greater than anything I'm looking at gives me a certain freedom and an opening, an expansiveness, bigger than I would otherwise have, believing that what I saw was all there was.
Right. Okay. So be permissive. Always be permissive with the picture. You don't need to take issue with it. You can just say, isn't that interesting? And that's where that statement, oh, that's the hat God's wearing today, or that's the dress God's wearing today.
Yep, that's what Mrs. Laird used to use, those phrases.
Okay, very cool. All right, excellent. Okay, so moving on then. In Government is Self-Government, on page 53 and 54, Margaret Laird wrote, revelation going on in and as individual consciousness is creation. Continuous self-being or self-fulfillment. The fact is coming through clearer each day that everything seen, heard, and felt consists of one's own mental stuff, the material of consciousness.
Yep.
So it's all in our own making.
Yeah, and it's a self-discovering.
Yeah.
You know, and when I say that self, I'm talking about a divine self.
Yes.
Because there is always that divine self present when you show up. If that were not present, there wouldn't be any Betty.
Right.
There wouldn't be any Kim.
Right.
If you're present, divine being is present. It's another way of saying, I remember in my book, I wrote the little boy in Sunday school. The teacher said to him, if you were out in the desert all by yourself, how would you know God was there? And he says, easy, because I'm there.
Yeah.
And it's true. If I'm there, God's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. In Science and Health, on page 267, line 10, Mary Baker Eddy wrote, the great I am made all that was made. Hence, man and the spiritual universe coexist with God, i.e., coexist as the God idea in action.
Yep.
So it's not two things going on like a coexistence. It's more like the God idea in action
shows up
as man.
Looking like this.
Yeah. And that's, so there's only one causative source, that sources everything.
Yep.
And that's consciousness or divinity.
Yeah. And you want to, I know that it's sticky playing with language, but when we use the word source, Mrs. Laird kind of took issue with it because she said it sounds like something's happening to make something else happen.
Right.
And that's not true.
Okay.
The something that's happening is all there is.
Okay.
Fundamental.
All right.
Without that happening, there's nothing.
Right.
So it's always God in action, called
Yeah.
or manifestation.
Okay.
And all the seen, heard, and felt is a point of view of reality.
Yeah.
And the point of view is simply the comfort language each one has as he discovers himself.
Right.
Yep.
And in your book, Mind is the Athlete, on page 27, you wrote, "You are a law to your existence when you recognize and acknowledge the universal law of being or cause. When you consciously live God being as fundamental and allow that awareness to show up as original creative experience."
Right.
And just allowing that awareness to show up as original creative experience could happen in every moment, even if you don't think that looks very original nor creative.
No.
Right?
Yeah, your opinion is thank you for sharing.
Right. Right.
Reality is what's going on, however you see it.
Yeah. And the key there is willing.
Yeah.
Willing and being aware, allowing. I guess allowing and willing, I would say, is the same, like a synonym.
Yeah, and what we're looking for is non-resistance.
Yeah.
What you resist persists.
Right.
So if I'm looking at something and I am not going to change my mind, that is the way it is.
Right.
Then I'm stuck.
Right.
I have no freedom at all.
Right.
And I'm stuck with a picture of my own making, my point of view. And I think my point of view is it.
Right.
So that leaves me with no alternative but just to be stuck right there until I'm willing to let go of that.
Right.
There's no moving on as long as you're hanging on to your point of view.
Right. Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, then I just put this down because Mrs. Laird wrote a really good summary, I thought. She said to live life, the divinity, God of humanity, self-consciously, in the face of its negation, is not easy, but it is essential.
Can you say that in a different way?
To live life, the divinity of humanity. That's what life is. Life is a synonym for the God idea.
Okay.
To live the God idea consciously. I lost my place in this thing. In the face of negation, everything says this is the way it is.
Yeah.
If I stub my toe, it's because the chair was not in the right place.
Right.
If it had been in the right place, I wouldn't have stubbed my toe.
Right.
So if I'm living my divinity, I would look and see, an attention getter. I have to pay attention.
Right.
Mrs. Laird said, always pay attention to your seeing. So if I'm seeing the chair as able to hurt me, where am I standing?
Right.
Busy being Betty, taking care of Betty, worried about her toe.
Uh-huh.
No idea what's going on.
Yeah.
I'm stuck.
Right.
So anyway, but in the face of that, it's not easy, but it is essential. If I'm going to ever live myself divinely, I have to give up on trying to keep Betty comfortable all the time. I have to leave Betty alone for a while.
Right.
And just be willing to see what else is possible, what else is present.
Yeah.
How else could I see it?
Yeah.
How else can I live it?
Right.
Yeah. And be willing to let go of my view of it from the standpoint of that's the way it looks. I wonder what it really is going on here. Well, it must be something creative. And what I'm finding out is that Betty isn't the creator of it. So if it's reality going on, and reality's at the standpoint of perfection, it's got to be a revealing of something that already exists perfectly.
Yeah.
And that'll show up in my human living like solving a problem. And I'll say, well, there we go. All done.
Yeah.
You notice how sometimes, and I know all of you have had this experience, you have something on your mind and you can't resolve it, but you go to sleep and you stop fussing with it, and right away the answer pops up and you wake up saying, there it is. I know exactly what to do.
Right.
Yeah. It's because the answer is there all the time.
Yeah.
It's been there before the problem arose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. So if there's any questions or comments, now would be the time, last chance to get them in while we wrap up today. But I want to relate this to revelation and creation.
Mm-hmm.
So what is revelation and creation, and what role does it play in our being cause or being accountable in our world?
That's a loaded question.
I know, it was good, wasn't it?
I can't imagine a single moment hardly where you wouldn't want to have creativity present. It would be boring. It would be dull. It would be uninspiring.
Mm-hmm.
It would be deadly. Margaret used to say, walking down the street, everybody's dead from the shoulders up anyway.
Yeah.
They think they're two-legged animals doing things, but it would be deadly. So if I want to live with a sense of originality, creativity, spontaneity, intuition, I have to be willing to consider something other than my daily point of view.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes a stubbing the toe to get you to pay attention. You know, something's going to have to get your attention,
Right.
because it's so easy to get preoccupied with the two-legged animal and what it's up to.
Right.
So I think when you talk about revelation and creativity, what we're talking about is sort of beyond the appearance of things. So we have new creation going on all the time in our human living. We have new inventions. We have new discoveries. We give Nobel Prizes for new things in chemistry and literature and so on. It's really, I think, like hitting a home run to discover that that's a possibility as a way to live all the time.
Yeah.
I don't have to wait for some momentous thing to occur to have creativity present.
Yeah.
And it helps to know that that creativity that's present all the time is self-revealing when I can acknowledge that the reality present is perfection self-revealing.
Right.
And that frees up my human living for creativity self-revealing.
Right.
In daily living.
Yeah.
I don't know whether those words stumbled over each other or not.
No, I think they said it.
Okay.
All right. So what there is to look at having creation, having it be a revelation. Everything that shows up really is a revelation. Isn't that self-discovering?
Yep.
And so as that every moment made new, you've got creation, 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 creation.
Mm-hmm.
Constant.
Yep.
And that's what all of that is. And as soon as we hook in or tie into our judgment or opinion about what's happening, now we've got two things going on.
You forgot who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. So you just stick with it and and allow it to be.
Yeah.
Enjoy the ride. Is that?
Yeah. Walk on with joy. Why out? What else is going on?
Right. All right, y'all, that's all we have for today. We'll be on again next week. Next week, we'll be on at 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific. Again, same bat time, same bat channel here at YouTube and at Facebook. If you're on YouTube, we would love for you to subscribe to our channel or press the thumbs up. Or on Facebook, a heart or a thumbs up. Awesome. And again, any comments are much appreciated. So, in fact, we have one real quick from Sandra. Always present, becoming conscious is what she wrote.
She could switch those words and say, always conscious, becoming present.
Oh, there we go. Okay, very good. Awesome. Okay.
Thank you, Sandy.
Yep. Okay, until next week, we'll see you then.
Bye-bye.